Hey, it's a late one. Brandon Mileski, Pat Micheletti back with you. Second intermission analysis on the KFAN social channels. Pat, period two, your thoughts?
Well, I'll put it to you this way: it's sometimes when you catch a team, how they are playing, or I'll put it to you this way: Edmonton smoked Vegas at home. Then Vegas goes on the road and has to fight back against San Jose, and they lose to San Jose. So I think a message was sent to the Vegas players tonight, and they look really sharp. They're creating space, or Minnesota's giving them space, and it's one of those games, Brandon, where Vegas is really on, and Minnesota's not quite there.
Yeah, and as Dan Kratzky writes, hard to be mad. We were due for an off night, but let's get a quick one in the third.
Yeah.
I don't think the Wild are like terrible tonight. I
No,
don't think they're bad tonight. Yeah, Vegas goaltender's been good, and
and,
Vegas has capitalized on the chances and been opportunistic on the opportunities they've had.
yeah, look at the goals they scored. There you never want to give a player that much space. The first goal of the game by Hutton, and then the third one, right in the slot there. Too much space,
Yeah.
and can't do that. And but give Vegas credit. They're cycling, they're moving, they're skating, they're skating, and they've played a little bit better than the Wild have.
A reminder, if you're still up late watching us on this late game tonight, we will take your comments and your questions. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, reach out to us and we can get you live as we're moving along through this intermission. Pat, let's talk about this Vegas team because right now they're the number one team in the Western Conference. We saw them in a 7-game series a couple years ago. They had a disappointing year last year. That was with Jack Eichel coming over and not really feeling 100%. He's obviously had a good season. They're still got some guys out like Mark Stone right now, but you have to think that that's a team that's going to be a contender in the West.
You have to get Riley Smith back, which they probably will. He's a really good center for them. Yeah, and their D are big and they're somewhat mobile. The question mark for them is going to be their goaltending. Jonathan Quick has not been good for them. They made the move to get him from Columbus. He's not been great. Logan Thompson is their number one guy. He's out. I don't know when he's back. But I think they're hoping that he gets back in Hill. Another goal. I mean, they've got a rotation of four goalies, and that I think is going to be the big spot for them.
The other game we can talk about tonight, Colorado Avalanche take down the Dallas Stars 5-2 on home ice. So the Wild, regardless of what happens tonight, will still be in the lead in the division,
Yep.
though Colorado will have a game in hand on them, only down a point. So Colorado can still leapfrog them. But I've said all along, Pat, I just want the Wild or Colorado to win the divisions. We don't have to face them. Now, I know the Wild played pretty well against them the other night and defeated them and showed they could be competitive, but ultimately that's a first-round matchup I'd like to avoid. And big for the Wild that at least that game didn't go to overtime tonight where there was 3 points being distributed.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I don't mind facing the Colorado Avalanche because not the Colorado Avalanche of a year ago. I still don't trust their depth. I mean, to be quite honest, when they're not as strong up the middle as they used to be. Cale Makar has been injured. Landeskog is an X factor for them. He's been skating every day, but he hasn't played. So I think they're somewhat a different team. They have a different goaltender. Some think he may be better. We don't know that until the playoffs start. So I'm not so worried about that. I really, I don't know. There's just something about Colorado that doesn't hit me. But regardless, you're probably going to have to play him anyway, right?
Yeah, you might have to, and I'm not acting like I'm absolutely terrified of them. And I thought the
No,
Wild's effort versus them the other night was very encouraging. But there are so many there's not many teams in the league that have the Makar, McKinnon,
no.
Rantanen combination of
Yeah.
players, and that's still
Yeah.
I still have a fear that they won a cup, they maybe they do the Tampa Bay Lightning where we're not going to take the regular season as serious. I still worry about them just flipping that switch once they get into a postseason.
Yeah, very well could be. And one thing I noticed about them the other night, they're not a very big defense core. They have Devin Taves and Eric Johnson, but other than that, you got Tyson Berry, right? Gerard Makar, although Makar's in another world. I get that. But, I think if you can get after their D a little bit, I just think that they're a beatable team. But, we'll have to wait and see.
Laurie Jones writes, "This is a game where you really miss Kirill." I think every game you miss Kirill. They've been able to survive without him for the last 9-10 games or so. Yeah, it's easy to say when you're in a situation where you're down 2 goals and you could use a game changer of sorts that you miss him. But even the games they've been winning, I didn't think this was sustainable without Kirill Kaprizov long term. And fortunately, Matt Boldy has carried them through this stretch.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the first intermission. It's where you're slotted to, correct? I mean, Foligno does not belong with Hartman and Zuccarello, but he's got to play there, and call it taking one for the team. But you get him slotted where he should be, and they might be a more effective team. Kirill comes back all of a sudden, and maybe I'm anxious to see when Nyquist comes in, what happens with him. So a lot of things. I wouldn't be overly concerned, but sure. You miss 97 every night, every single night, because he's special.
Yeah, you and I were just talking the other night. Hypothetically, if they went into the playoffs with all their forwards healthy, who exits the lineup when Nyquist comes back and Kirill Kaprizov comes back? And we even said at the time, well, the odds of someone else not being hurt by the time you get to that point, and then
right.
Mason Shaw gets hurt tonight.
Yeah, did we jinx them or what? But but that happens, right? And it could be a shot off the ankle. It could be as simple, Shaw hurt himself, right? He gets his skate, I think, kind of caught in a rut, and then into the boards, but you saw where his leg went, and so you just never know, and that's why the depth is so important, and it appears that Minnesota has that.
KC says, "Why no college free agents? Seems like we would need some, being we are still eating the Parise Suter contracts."
Well, maybe they're trying and they offered, and regardless, signing free agent now does not help them this year. It helps them in the future. But I'm sure there's a couple of guys that they've targeted. I'm sure there's still some that are left playing that are in Quinnipiac, Michigan, Minnesota, or Boston U that they're probably going to look at. But it all depends on what the needs are and what that player brings.
2 years in a row they've gotten beaten out by Colorado for a guy, right? Ben Myers from the Gophers last year, the kid from Western Michigan that has 30 goals, Poland this year, but the Wild this year are really not in a great position to try to lure in and recruit a college free agent, right? Like defensively, they have 8 guys. They've got Brock Faber coming in. They're loaded. I shouldn't say loaded, but they have a lot of prospects that play defense.
Yes.
No defenseman's going to want to come play here. You have 2 goalies going well and a third one in the minors who's supposed to be your star of the future, right? So what goalie is going to want to come here? And then even at the forward position, you still have Rossi, you still have Kuznetsov in the future, and they have, they don't have a ton of star power past Kaprizov and Boldy at forward, but they have a lot of depth and they have a lot of numbers. So if you're a college free agent, I would look at Colorado and go, man, they've got those 3-4 stars locked up. They're going to have to go cheap elsewhere for the next couple of years. I can play with those guys and rack up 60, 70 points a year. Playing with those guys in a lineup where they need me to play. It just makes too much sense. The other teams just have as much, a Colorado can easily recruit a player more so than the Minnesota Wild.
For 100%. And look no further. Ben Myers gets called up, and I believe he was in the lineup tonight for Colorado.
He was. Brian wants to know, is Reeves in the lineup in the playoffs?
It all depends on the matchup. It all depends who's hurt. I think they like what he's done. I think he brings that element. Depending upon, if it's a fast skating, up and down type thing, probably not. But if you need, if they get beat up some night, he'll be right back in the lineup. It's all situational at this point, and that's why you're going to need every player that you have in your lineup.
Yeah, Rusty AF says the PP gets us back in it, willing it into existence. I guess that was kind of a significant power play at the end of the second period there, Pat. Down 2 goals, had a chance to cut that thing to gain a little momentum going into the third, and they could not capitalize.
No, Johansson was close. I think he fooled Rousseau a little bit, but when you're down, we always talk about it, specialty teams, and hopefully they'll get one in the third.
Pat, great talking with you as always. If people want to listen to us further, they can listen to us or watch us on the Beyond the Pod podcast. And I'm assuming we'll maybe doing more stuff like this as the regular season winds down and into the playoffs.
Sounds great. Have a good night, Brandon.
All right, he's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. Thank you so much for watching our intermission analysis tonight. Third period about to begin. Go Wild. Bye.